Yes, we have quorum.
Do we have any additions or changes to our agenda?
Not that I'm aware of.
Good.
The thing that came up now is not as.
Can we go around and introduce everybody as well?
It's spelled incorrectly in the minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, wait, when we get to the minutes, we'll go through that.
Okay, so let's have introduction. I'll just start it and send it around this way so it ends up with Randy. I'm Art Midias,
Okay.
Chair, and I'm from Little River Township.
Sherry Apple, and I am at large.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm Eric Ledig. I live in Enos, and I'm representing proudly Chiefs Township.
I'm Natalie. I live in unincorporated Hillsborough and I have no idea which seat I sit here.
Leaders are.
Beard Grove, yeah.
Roy Schoenberg, Chapel Township.
Amy Cole, and I'm just also recognizing I'm at large too. Oh, yeah, changed all of that.
Thought it was alternatives.
Yeah. But, yeah, never, I mean,
Okay.
but I thought we had changed the link.
Just say your name.
Oh, Jamie Crandall.
Nish.
Oh, Mr. Reddy, Orange County.
Nelson Nygaard Consulting, here to present about our progress on the short range transit plan.
Mhm.
And I am Yanisa Deshakamton, and I work with Miranda. I'm the project manager on the Nelson Nygaard side for the Orange County Short Range Transit Plan. And yet we're here to give you all an update on where we're at with the project.
All right, I'm Darlene, Orange County Transit Planning Manager.
Randy Marshall, I represent Bingham Township.
Brett Walter, Chapel Hill.
Thanks. Do we have anybody online, Darlene?
We do, we have Josh and go ahead, Josh.
Hey, just saying my name, I'm online.
It's somebody else online too. Hold on. And Adam. Okay.
Yes, Adam McGovern at large. I live in Hillsborough.
All right,
We have.
very good attendance.
Are there any public comments? Any public other than our consultants? Then, that brings us to the minutes for the February meeting and, on the 19th when I was in Kansas City, so I'm totally agnostic as far as these minutes.
The only change that I recommend is I didn't have the meeting listed.
Well, I need to be the ones that's recording.
Okay, Greg,
I was not there.
Roy was not there. He is listed. Greg was there and is listed.
Mute yourself, Nish.
I'm not on.
I'll change my name.
Where do we get Darlene?
Can't really hear because there's so much echoing. Hello? I think we're good now.
Okay.
All right. Now, what were the changes, please?
Roy was not in attendance in the February.
Okay,
Greg was in attendance.
okay.
And then Sherry's last name isn't spelled correct. Oh, your first.
Okay, so spelling, okay, okay. Got it.
From ages ago. DORO, and then other places it's spelled Hillsborough with OUGH. On line 32, Hillsborough, unless there's a different Hillsborough.
Okay, no, it's not. That's the old way. Can you speak up so we can hear on the mic, y'all, please? Uh-huh,
Says bring them.
okay.
Being always in new ways, we have questions, but they're not attributed to anyone. That seems to me like a.
Well, you have that,
that we-
what, you have that because when we're doing the minutes, people don't speak loud enough, right? So you don't always know who it is, so we do our best
The purpose
to
of-
write the questions down.
the purpose of the video- This is simply the summary of the minute, the details of the conversations. The video itself is what people would need to know who did what and said what, because as you know, this is a public meeting. The meeting is published, the video of the meeting is published, the audio of the meeting is published, so the minutes is mainly simply the summary and the highlight of the main conversation points.
Well, in my own personal view, I think it's, an omission that we would benefit from, because when we sit here and review the minutes, we're not reviewing the video.
Yeah.
And so, we can't reflect back on, who asked the question. I mean, there could be a question that I asked, and I would correct if it was stated wrong, but I don't know who asked the question, so I think that's,
That is meaningful,
I
Randy.
think that's an
Basically,
oversight,
you answered the question is meaningful.
right? Well, I think that's an oversight.
We'll provide that little more detail going forward.
Okay,
We just need people to speak up because even though when I go over the notes in the minutes, I can't hear everybody all the time when we're trying to when we're trying to type up the minutes. So one time when I was doing the minutes and I didn't have everybody name in there, someone said something, but sometimes I really can't hear everybody. And that's just being honest. So if I can't really hear, then it's like, who name do I put down? I'm not going to put down the right name because the person is talking so low and I might not get everything. So that's the real reason behind me that's the real reason why the names aren't there.
so you can't hear it off of the video.
You can't hear all the time, like who's talking
But you
in
can hear-
detail.
When we're sitting here,
Correct.
okay,
Might be a good practice for us to identify ourselves when we speak for exactly that reason.
That way the video would have the name as well, and the audio would have the name as well, who made the question. That way there's no confusion. We don't want to attribute his questions to yours and your question to hers or anything like that to clear that up.
if there are no other additions
I have
or corrections to the minutes, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I have a question. This is Sharon. On line 76, the question, because I think the question I raised, which was about the whole issue of widening the roads for narrowing lanes in terms of congestion. I'm not quite sure I understand the last line. Road dies that you don't need an apostrophe there, but it says it says I-85 to I-40 is mainly Burlington to Raleigh, not Mebane, Hillsborough to Durham and vice versa. I'm not quite sure I understand the reference there.
There's two different points. One is the road dieting, reducing lane widths and reducing lanes. The reducing lane widths and reducing lanes is the practice of road dieting.
Right,
It's dieting the road to control speeding and reduce lanes and stuff. It's a different practice.
Right.
And that's a practice that is successful in urbanized areas. In cities, it is very successful. I don't know a practice of road diet in rural areas.
no, I understand that part. I
But
just
the-
don't understand the last line of this.
The I-40 and I-85 and to parallel the interstate is the functionality of a interstate is different from the functionality of the US 70 corridor. We wouldn't
Right.
road diet either one of them because of the rural nature and the different functionality of those.
I would just suggest, because I don't think the last line is relevant, to strike it. If I understand what you just said, but I don't understand it in the context of the answer.
Okay, understood.
Just my recommendation.
Is that last, just for my information, is that last sentence saying that people who are doing Mebane, Hillsborough, and Durham are using 70 instead of I-85 and 40?
Yeah, because it's going from town to town and the I-40 is mainly regional.
Any other corrections?
This is Randy, and I will recommend approval of the minutes if there are no other further corrections or changes.
With correction.
With corrections.
Yes.
With correction.
Okay, we have a motion for Randy Marshall. Do we have a second?
Amy.
Amy Cole seconds the motion. Any further discussion? Not all in favor, aye. Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions, myself, I won't there. And motion carries. Our next item is the short range transit plan.
Are you able to share your presentation?
I think it's coming up now.
Okay.
Great. So thanks everyone for having time for us to speak on the Orange County Short Range Transit Plan. Since we haven't come here before, again, I'm Yanisa and this is Miranda, and we will be talking about kind of the project overall and then where we're at with the project. And something that was included in I think the packet for today's agenda is our draft existing conditions report. So if you have a chance to review that after this meeting as well, we would appreciate any comments you have there. And those can be sent over to Nish. So for today, the agenda will include a project overview, and then we'll do a high-level summary of the existing conditions findings, talk about our phase 1 engagement, which we're in the middle of right now, and then talk about next steps for the project. And for the project overview, if you don't know, the Orange County Short Range Transit Plan is an effort to identify opportunities to improve transit service in this county and create an implementation plan for the time frame of 2025 to 2030. And an important part of this is obviously talking to stakeholders and transit riders and people who live and work in Orange County to see what improvements they're looking for over the next 5 years of the plan. And just going over some of the project goals. Again, the focus on it is both operating and capital transit improvements for the county. We also want to be, through this effort, reviewing Orange County's potential transit funding resources beyond just the county transit tax, as there are a lot of improvements we want to make, but we have to make sure we can implement it with the funding available. We also will be creating a detailed implementation plans from FY 2026 to FY 30, and then we're also going to be recommending improvements past the FY 2030 timeframe. They'll just have a bit less details. And then those post FY 30 recommendations will be used to inform the next long range transit plan effort. So it's kind of an iterative cycle. We want to focus more on the short term for this plan, but also keep our eyes out for the long term. And then for the project schedule, we kicked off this effort in November. And throughout the winter, we've been working on this review of existing conditions. Right now, we're in March 2024, which is the phase 1 of public engagement. And then after this round, we'll be working to develop our transit strategies, coming back to the public again in August 2024 with our recommendations, and then finalizing the transit plan by the fall, aiming for October 2024. Any kind of questions before I jump into the existing conditions phase? And the project schedule or what the project is about overall? Cool. Okay. So for the existing conditions, this is the report that was sent out has a lot more details, but I'll just kind of hit on the key points. The report itself includes 5 sections. We first did a review of past plans. We know there's been a ton of other planning processes in the region. So we wanted to make sure we're not repeating any work and building upon the work that's already been done. We conducted a market analysis of transit demand in the county. We looked at the performance of existing services. We analyzed current transit funding, and we summarized all of that into a chapter on gaps and opportunities on where can we go from here given these existing conditions. And then the study area we looked at was Orange County, focusing on areas outside of Chapel Hill and Carborough, and then up to 10 miles outside of Orange County boundary, which is the new Orange County Transit Services service area. So for the market analysis, Fixed route transit, we know works best in areas with higher density, so that's both population and job density, while demand response services are a better fit for more rural areas. So the map on here, which might be a bit hard to see, but it's in the report, shows the combined population and employment densities with places that are darker blue, places with higher population density, and places with darker orange with higher job density. Or actually, I mixed that up the other way around. And then the places that are kind of the more brown are places with both a lot of people and a lot of jobs. And the areas with a lot of people and a lot of jobs are the areas that can support transit the most, at least fixed route transit. And we see that different parts of Hillsborough and Mebane have this relatively high population and job density. While the rest of the county may be a better fit for demand response. We also know that transit investments should prioritize equity and serving communities that rely on transit the most. So we all the maps aren't included in here, but we looked at the environmental justice communities of concern as well as transit needs across the county. And we saw that Northwest Orange County has a high proportion of these communities of concern. And then within Hillsborough and Mebane, there's the greatest population that rely on transit the most. So as we're coming up with our strategies, we definitely want to be keeping that in mind. We also know that Orange County is growing both in population and number of jobs. And as we're planning for the future, we want to make sure that we're capturing that development rather than just planning for what's there today. And so this map shows the new development coming in, and a lot of them are concentrated in southern Hillsborough, throughout Mebane, and along the kind of I-40 corridor as well, and US 70 corridor. So we want to make sure that we're looking at this when we're planning our strategies.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Share.
Let me see if I can
The
zoom
pink
in.
and the blue are.
Yeah.
Looks like pink, blue and yellow.
Yeah, so I can talk a little, the pink areas there are two economic development districts. Whereas the circles, which are yellow and blue, are
Yellow is residential.
yellow is residential and blue is non-residential. So jobs and the size of those circles represents the square footage of the development. So the larger the circle,
The bigger.
the bigger the development. And so, yeah, yellow is where there's residential developments that are planned. Blue is where there are non-residential developments planned. And then the pink areas just represent districts that have plans for future growth.
And these districts are designated by the county.
Would it be possible to have copies of these maps?
Yes, yeah, we can send that, and it is in the report that we sent out too, so.
Okay, thank you.
Randy has something.
I was just gonna make the same comment that we're being asked to provide comments, but we don't have any of the information in front of us or have reviewed it earlier that you have on the screen there.
We need to print it out. This is useless sending it to as a PDF. I get eye strain. I'm old. I can't read a document like that on screen. I can't make notes and write all over it the way I do. I mean, I need something.
Hard copies, yeah.
that way, absolutely printed out and not sent on screen. I tried reading it, my eyes gave out, so I don't know what I should know to be able to comment adequately.
Okay, we get you hard copies.
So can you, this is Amy, can you explain a little bit more about the residential and the business when you say square footage? So are we talking about the land square footage? Are we talking about the business square footage? Because like, what's the dense population of those areas?
That is a very good question. We received the data from Orange County with just the square footage, so I actually can't.
It's the buildings that are developed, there's a building square footage, the development is for the building square footage. And how much of the land is what parcels and areas that are contributed to those land and those developments.
So it could be that a business has a large footprint, but not that many employees based on the type of business it is. And same for housing, we could be talking about houses that are relatively large, but are single occupant.
Right, so when we get to developing, like if we're drawing a new route or something, we'll zoom into more detail to see exactly what the developments are. Because yes, this is a pretty high level and there's a lot of variables I see.
We also, a good point about that, looking at the density, we have maps for future year population and jobs that look just at other efforts that have already been done in the region that look at the number, like based on developments that have been proposed and other trends, like what is the job growth projected over the next 10 years? And we've mapped that density out, and that highlights some different areas than this map does. Because the density doesn't show up quite as much, because maybe there's, it's a big development, but there aren't that many jobs in a large area. So we're balancing the kind of point-based, like single location destinations here with additional analysis that looks at density for like just number of jobs.
And
That's
just
a
to,
very good point.
and just to clarify, as they did this draft report, as they did this existing condition analysis, we provided them more data based on some of the developments that's not been included, like the Research Triangle Logistics Park that's under construction, the Upland Industrial Park that's under construction and stuff like that. So they've been given more information now as we're going through this public review of this existing condition.
Yeah, and just one last notice, because the region is growing pretty fast, a lot of the data is playing catch up in a lot of ways. Like the census is 2022 ACS, which is before that mostly, and then the MPOs like Metropolitan Transportation Plan, that was done, I think, in 2020 as the last one, or finalized in 2020, so done before. So some of this data we're just playing catch up, and as we get more into the strategies, we'll make sure that we're using the most up-to-date data possible.
Any other questions at this point?
Okay, great. Yeah. And then, yeah, these maps will hopefully be a little bit easier to see when you all get the hard copies of it. But something else that we looked at, sorry, I did not change the right. Okay. We also mapped out travel flows, and this is looking at all modes of transportation, not just public transit. And this is, we wanted to see where in the county people are traveling to. And so outside of a lot of the kind of travel flows, and the thickness of the line shows how many trips a day are estimated between different transportation analysis zones. We see that most trips are occurring just like within a municipality, so within Hillsborough or within Mebane or within Chapel Hill. But outside of these municipalities, the greatest trips coming in are to Hillsborough from the surrounding areas. And then there's kind of a lot of travel in the corridor between Mebane and Hillsborough, for example, from Upland or Buckhorn into Mebane and Hillsborough. And then there's also kind of strong flows between Eubanks and Chapel Hill. So this is something that if we're looking at new routes or making sure that people are covered by transit in a way that they would be by driving, this really helps us pinpoint that. Okay, so that was the very high level overview of the market analysis. And then the next thing we did was we looked at the existing services and how well they're performing today. So starting with the fixed route, there's 3 fixed route services offered by Orange County right now. The Hillsborough Circulator is the highest ridership route. It's picking up a lot of people at large apartment complexes, key shopping destinations, as well as the Passmore Center and the Sportsplex. And we were at the Walmart today and saw a good number of people riding it this morning earlier. The second route we looked at is the Orange Alamance connector. Currently is operating as an on-demand service due to low ridership. We don't have a ton of data available for this route, but I think a lot of people are going to the Upland Community Center from it. And then lastly, the Orange Chapel Hill connector, which is probably the moderate ridership of these two, but we do see that a lot of people are taking it just one way. And we're presuming that people are taking the Go Triangle 420 back the other way. So those 2 routes are really working together. So we want to make sure that they are coordinated together a bit better once we get to strategies. Those are the 3 fixed route services. We also took a look at the demand response services. So the ones that are eligibility-based services that require prior registration. The map here shows the origins and destinations of where people are traveling to, with the blue is the origins and the orange is the destination. So basically people are getting picked up from all over the county and they're coming into Hillsborough, Chapel Hill, and Mebane for their services, which I think is not super surprising. The biggest destinations were Carolina Dialysis in Carrboro and Mebane, the Hillsborough Recovery Solutions, Passmore Senior Center, and just downtown Hillsborough in general.
Yes, sir, Randy.
I have an acquaintance who has multiple handicaps, and she was trying to investigate options for her getting to some of her appointments, physical therapy and medical appointments. And she gave up because she said the amount of paperwork that she had to go through was just unbelievable. Is that a
So you-
significant problem? Because heretofore, family and friends had been able to provide that for her, and everybody was looking for an option where she could be more independent and make those arrangements for
Is she
herself.
going through Medicaid?
I'm sorry,
Is she going through Medicare, Medicaid?
I'm sure she is.
The easiest, simplest way to do that is to work with DSS.
Okay,
To contact DSS and they would help her with the paperwork and they would coordinate with us because they're the ones who provide the schedule of Medicaid.
but would anybody have told her that when she was
If she
trying
contacted
to
DSS,
make
they would-
arrangements?
Had she contacted DSS, they would have told her.
Okay,
And had she contacted us, we would have told her as well and provided the number.
I don't know how she tried to engage the system. I
Okay.
just know that she was frustrated with lots of paperwork that she had to do in order to
And at DSS and our staff,
get the service provided to her, so she just gave up.
and at DSS is a really great resource at DSS and we have staff that helps with the paperwork. It's a simple form they follow.
So there is an extensive amount of paperwork.
No, it's a single form,
Okay,
either with DSS or with us, because the agency works, DSS works with Medicaid. They work with Medicare, Medicaid and can make the books and tell us when to make the trips.
okay. All right, well, I'm sorry I didn't have more information.
Oh.
Thank you.
You're
Sure.
welcome.
Just thinking,
Ooh.
if this, as part of the,
Hold on, Josh. Go ahead.
this is Sherry, as part of the planning, is it, is there going to be any look at kind of the accessibility issue, meaning not being able to get on the bus, but trying to access the system? Is that coming up? Okay.
Yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah, so one of our recommendations is to make information easier to find, and when we talk to both the
Mhm.
Department of Social Services and the Department of Aging, they kind of, like, I think the Department of Aging made a flow chart which showed people which options they had, but even that's a bit too complicated, so trying to simplify that and making the website easier for people to.
There's,
We'd be happy to share that, I think Department of Aging flow chart that was only recently completed, but like helps understand like what the steps are and who you need to reach out to for what kind of, that's in the report, that you'll receive the hard copy of. We included a copy of that flow chart, which hopefully would also be helpful for anyone now. But yeah, looking forward, I think that's a really good point of raising it, is that people have trouble navigating the system, and that's a gap that we want to be able to address. with this
and it's
project.
not as.
Josh, let Josh, come on, Josh.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'm looking at the existing report or existing conditions report, and it looks like 36% are on time. Did y'all identify some of the big barriers there?
The on-time performance is a data that we're constantly tracking through our or through our technology and e-learning software that we use to track our on-time performances. I mean, there's been fleet issues, there's been traffic issues, there's been little safety issues and stuff like that, but that is a service that we're constantly improving. The on-time performance that you're tracking right now, that's more for fixed route service, or is it for the demand response? Because we track both.
The 36%.
I'm looking at- Yeah, the 36% with the rural operating assistance programs.
Yeah, because I think there's a larger window, a 30-minute window, and that sort of makes a little discrepancy in the data as to whether it's 5-minute window, if they're supposed to be there on time, or 30 minutes. So that is something we're working on improving. So hopefully will be, one of the recommendations that come out of this plan is how to improve on-time performance.
Sorry, one more question for Sherry. And you could just point me to the report. In the previous slides where you had the maps, is there any way to determine what the age range is for some of that data? Because you were just talking about the Department of Aging, but if we're trying to reach different communities, younger communities, perhaps, different language communities, do we even have any data that would tell us who those users are?
That data is evolving, and correct me if I'm wrong, because of the expansion of Medicaid, now we're able to pick up kids and children, college students under Medicaid for those trips. So there's, the data itself is evolving because that is a recent development. during the course of this planning.
Yeah,
process.
and I would say we have, using census data, we can kind of find out where a lot of these groups live, but the tying it to specific rides is a bit harder because it's discounts on the bus. Or we have to kind of go into the more confidential data of like the people who are registered for the man response to try to match it up. So it's a bit more complicated, but we do know where a lot of these communities live, and so we'll start with that, and if we need to take it.
Would you be able to help provide cohort areas and stuff to provide a group range? Because age is
Yeah.
we can't publish that information. This is a teenage group, or, I mean, there's a group cohort. Would that help in being able to?
Cohort
present,
and the,
like an age rate, like
Yes, we
18 to 30 or something like that?
is that data and the data you've provided us?
I know.
Yeah,
For demand response, we do have access to the age of the people who are riding it. But that's because it's because it's eligibility based, your age matters when you
The
register.
age is already in there. It's
And
mainly
so-
adult seniors.
It's hard, and then we don't have age data for riders of fixed route transit or that sort of thing. But we want to make sure that, like, yeah, we're working with Department of Aging, but we do want to make sure that transit is accessible for people of all ages. And integrating Department of Aging with everyone so that there's no like isolating of different age groups of like, you get this service, you get this, but like making sure it's serving people as they're needed.
Thank you.
Says, Art, do you see demand response as a service that could be expanded?
yes, so actually the next slide would be good for this. So we also took a look at the mobility on demand service, which is the newest service that's provided by OCTS right now. It has the broadest service hours and the broadest or the least restrictions on it in terms of people who can use it. So with demand response right now, you generally need to qualify with age or disability, or kind of a medical or job need. With mobility on demand, it's anyone can use it. You don't have to request a ride 2 days beforehand the way you do for the demand response trips. And with the expanded service hours, so Monday through Thursday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Fridays are 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. and then Saturdays 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. This is the only Orange County transit service right now that operates on Saturdays at all. But it is more expensive at $5 versus free to $3. And we do see this data is from October 2023, and we do see that there's opportunities to increase the use and publicity of this service. There were 29 trips total in October 2023, and given that it's open to everyone, we can see that this could be the growing service that more and more people use. And we would like to kind of find the strategies to make it so that it's a service that more people use, because it can really help with a lot of mobility needs in the county right now. And then I think in those 29 trips, we did see that the most popular destination was the Seymour Center, which means that older adults are using this as well. And there's some kind of barriers with having to download an app, so trying to make that as easy as possible for people to use.
Vehicles do we have on demand at a time?
Currently, the fleet is registered for 5 on-demand vehicles for the mobility on demands. We have the drivers, we work on improving and repairing our fleet to be able to do that, and we're also working on expanding that fleet in the annual work program going forward.
So if someone calls for mobility on demand, what's the wait time for them to?
It's a same day service. It's, I think they're supposed to call 30, at least put it in the reservation 30 minutes before they need to be picked up. But I think that's something we need to work on, the messaging as to how that is done, and so we improve more resources, improve that service.
So what would be a goal for, like, what would be a reasonable goal for us to be stretching to say that we're maximizing the amount of riders, mobility on demand?
That is a very good question, and that is hopefully a recommendation that'll come out of this, determine the performance and metrics and what is considered a achievable goal to be achieved. Right now, it's ad hoc, as in we repairing current fleet and employing drivers of the current fleet, expanding that fleet. It's more, planning it incrementally, and we're doing it, and hopefully this plan will help us formalize that structure.
Right, and yeah, we would hope for something that's more than a few riders a day, especially if there's eventually gonna be 5 full vehicles on the road. I think a lot of this is with the kind of driver shortage and things, there's a lot of services that can't run fully. But since our plan does look to 2030, we want to make sure that we hit baseline service and then keep going up from there.
Yeah,
Not that I'm trying to, but one thing that I'm sorry, Josh, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Josh.
Sorry, yeah. I know it looks like there weren't enough trips to really show where folks were coming from. Do we know if folks are, it looks like a lot of destinations are in urban areas. Do we know if the mobility and demand users are mostly coming from those rural areas that aren't really going to be well served by fixed route?
That's correct. We left, because we were mapping this as like home and,
Yeah, I understand.
yeah, it's
when
just
folks
privacy
talk about it
reasons,
with
but they
such a
were
low number.
rural.
Okay.
They were-
thank you.
Yeah, good question.
This is Jamie. Do we know if it's the same people? Like, this is 29 trips, which is like one a day. A little more, I guess it's not every day, but were they the same people over and over again? Do we know?
It was, yeah, there were, it was, I think there were like 15 unique users, maybe. I don't remember off the top of my head, I'm sorry, but yeah, it's there were a number of these trips were made, yeah, like every Thursday, like it's like the same person taking the same bus on Thursdays to this at this time. Like you do start to see that pattern. You see it a lot more with the like demand response, but we did see it with some of the mobility on demand just at a very low level.
Great.
This is Greg. I had a question. Are these either special vehicles or specially trained drivers?
No, the mobility demand is a non-CDL. These are vans, cars. Some of them are ADA, depending on the fleet.
Is there any look at maybe using some private services? It just looks like for having 5 vehicles for the amount of trips. It seems like, is there a lower cost option that might provide more flexibility?
That
for
is
some-
what has been discovered. The opposite has been discovered in this use. Contracting the service out just costs more. That is why a lot of these contracting services are going in-house and being done internally. Durham is converting that during that process. They're trying to stop using Lyft and Uber and in-housing that service because contracting is more expensive.
Wow.
And sometimes we do see these services just around the country as if they get too successful, they can actually hurt it themselves because there's not enough cars on the road and then reliability. And I feel so it's a delicate balance of making sure that we publicize this and people are writing it. And if it ends up being there's too much demand, there might be strategies to like convert some of it to fixed route.
Wilson
more things.
did that. Wilson converted their entire service to mod because of the increase in its ridership.
Randy,
Is a mobility on demand include services for people that would be handicapped, for instance, if they get a
Yes.
wheelchair, someone
Yes.
would help them into the vehicle, store the wheelchair until they got where they were going.
Our original
Yes.
fleet that's we're repairing is for ADA vehicles, ADA fleet, they have lifts. Yes,
And there was a charge, this is Randy, I'm sorry, by the way, this is, I heard something about $5, is there a charge for riding these vehicles?
Yes, this is $5 per trip.
Okay.
mod is not an eligibility. There's no application, there's no paperwork, it's an app.
Anybody can use.
It's an app on your
Yes.
phone, Transloc app, and you just put your reservation in, pay your thing, and it's yours.
what's that called?
Transloc, TRANSLOC. It's on our website. We need to improve the marketing information about that.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was eligible for everybody.
It is.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying this is the least, I know the least about this
Because we're
particular.
doing the marketing. I mean, we did some messaging with CJRD and other places and other departments, but we haven't done any real advertising of it.
So this is Amy. I'm curious you have the national trends. Is there anything that talks about, and I know we don't have Sunday service, I'm not trying to increase your service. But is there anything about Sunday services, especially with the senior population trying to get to church?
Oh, with church. We did hear just in general, I'll talk about engagement in a bit if I have time. But we've been doing pop-ups this week and we were at Walmart earlier today and a few people were talking about the need for Sunday service. I don't know for church specifically, if people generally said that, but just
My experience like nationally and in other cities is it's nice, but often it ends up being something that churches provide themselves. Like church vans do often exist for congregants. And so there's like, if the bus system already exists, or if it's like already common, there is some of that, but it's often a gap that maybe is like the last to be filled, because there is that kind of ad hoc, like individual.
That's interesting.
But,
I mean, 'cause
yeah,
the
it's a-
reason I was thinking about it is 'cause I know several people who are older that no longer are able to drive, and they struggle to actually find someone to be able to get them. a charge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think just a trend towards I feel like a lot of places ended up not providing Sunday service in the past, and now there's a trend towards just 7-day-a-week service. And less commuter focused, just the way people are traveling now, and a lot of people who are relying on these services are working like a service job on Sunday and can't get to work using transit, so. Just having that all, if funding allows it, having the all 7 days a week network.
I'm looking at Translock on the phone. If would someone use this to go to the airport? I mean.
That's the problem.
What's the restrictions? I mean, we don't have to get into this today.
It's just a
because that's not-
county and a bit of,
But-
right?
It's a.
It seems like I could use this to go to the airport for 5
It does not go to the
It is
airport.
not.
not go to the
Mapping of
airport.
Transloc is just Orange County. We're working on improving that to include a 10-mile buffer.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yes.
That's helpful, because I thought, well, you're gonna get a lot of people on this.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then the $5 might not be.
People know about this. I mean, this is like Uber, but cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's our competition. That's how it was started.
Mhm.
This program started because of the competition of Uber and
I'm
the.
saying clearly, because none of us know about it. It's not well advertised, but once it is.
That is
you
a
know,
good
like-
finding for us too.
The confusion, I think we mentioned it, I'm gonna shut up.
I like that. Let's finish.
Then you're gonna mention what I was gonna say later in this.
Yeah, so I'll just go through kind of the key opportunities that we've identified throughout our research on this, and I think some of it reflects what we've talked about on this meeting already. First, the main theme is to make services easier to use. So that's communicating with the public about available services, investing in better bus stop amenities, improving the access to transit, and then just coordinating services with regional providers a bit better. So that's basically everything we just talked about now. We want to be improving the existing services, so investing in demand response outside of the main towns and corridors. We want to strengthen the Hillsborough circulator that is working really well right now. And then we want to expand the fleet and continue to recruit operators so that we can provide the services that are on the website and that we're recommending. In addition to that, we also want to look at new service opportunities. So talking to the departments of social services and aging and with the public, we see that people are looking for options for free and low cost services to grocery stores and other similar services. We want to make sure we're increasing access to employment opportunities, especially ones with non-traditional work hours, and then also explore a Mebane circulator as well. And then on the financial side, we want to better leverage the available funding, so balancing the available resources to favor both more productive and more needed services. We want to ensure that Medicaid eligible trips are being reimbursed to the fullest extent possible, and explore ways to leverage additional transit tax and federal dollars to help fund transit in Orange County. And then lastly, improving fare payment, streamlining fare payment methodologies across the services, looking at some opportunities for maybe subsidized passes for mobility on demand. And these are really just kind of initial ideas that we'll be fleshing out more throughout this summer into the fall as our strategies, but these are kind of the big ones that we saw coming out of this report. I was wondering how much time we have, because I'm not.
Go ahead.
Greg, I
Keep
just have
going.
one quick comment.
You good.
Personally, I would feel more comfortable if we had some of the ROI and the projections, because to me, I'm just sitting here saying, I had a small business, I had 3 cars there, 2 personal vehicles, I don't know how much we utilized it, what the cost was. Seeing 5 vehicles and the staffing and the insurance and all that to cover it for 30 trips a month, like, I'd like to understand, but what do we expect as the ramp? And what's the actual cost? Because I just trying to do the math in my head, I don't see how it could be cheaper to have that much on hand for 30 rides a month.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't actually have the 5 vehicles on hand too, right?
Right, the repair and the service that we were certainly going through and working on replacing and converting that fleet. Right now, there's a confusion between demand response and mod that we need to also clear up in our messaging, because this service are very similar. Well, you're talking about demand response and multi-on-demand, both had demand in it, so I had to clear that up. So our services are supporting each other. Appreciate it.
Does Wilson have any data that'd be relative to Greg's inquiry?
Yes,
We can do a bit of.
Durham is also has that data. Durham has done that investigation in trying to say, contracting with Lyft and Uber is too expensive for Durham. I think, I don't know if y'all have that information.
Yes, but Durham actually has kind of the opposite of problem of too many people riding rather than not enough, so that's why it's ballooning in costs. And then sometimes with contacting Lyft and Uber, it's hard to get full data from them because they kind of anonymize everything to protect their own IP, so there are kind of benefits to running it in-house, but sometimes it's easier to start with Lyft and Uber as a pilot program, which is what a lot of cities do. Josh,
Josh, you have something?
Oh, sorry, I did not. Sorry.
Okay.
yeah, so yeah, happy to answer any more questions, but for now, I'll talk a little bit about the engagement phase that we're in right now. The boards in the back, if you want to look at them later, are what we're bringing around the county. But basically, our outreach period started earlier this month and we'll run it till the end of the month. And we want to talk to people about feedback on existing service needs and concerns, and then collect feedback on potential transit service improvements as we get to our strategies phase of the project. There's a project website, orangecountysrtp.com, which has all of this information. And our target audiences for the engagement include transit riders, Orange County residents, stakeholders, and riders and non-riders from traditionally underserved communities.
This is Greg, just a quick comment, and maybe it's my PC, but putting the www in front did not work. I had to remove that and just put in the Orange County.
Oh,
And then the other piece, when I figured that part out, and again, I don't want to be offensive, but for English, you have the British flag instead of the US flag.
We could take a look at it.
There's been issues that, I mean, we've been trying to work with our communication department and broadcasting that link out and working with that and posting on our website. So we're doing our best to communicate that resource.
Right, let me just jot that down.
Because sometimes people have also said to me, okay, if they do the HTTPS and then the link, then it works, others. And getting this link to work properly.
Right, okay. Yeah. Yeah, let's see if we can put the American flag.
Darby gets on that thing.
No, you did right.
We might end up with the tube in Orange County.
That would be something.
I think it at least clear.
So our engagement strategy has a few different approaches. First of all, we have a transit improvements survey. So that's the short survey that's both online and there's a paper version available as well. And that's what we've been handing out at the pop-ups, and it's on the website. We've been doing pop-up events at key community locations, so I'll show that schedule in a little bit. We've also been putting polling boards at bus stops with shelters, and these are kind of similar to this board right here. People who are waiting at bus stop can take the stickers that are just hanging there and do it without us being there, and then we kind of go around and take pictures over time to make sure that we're collecting the feedback. And then we've been publicizing the effort through materials dropped off at community locations. Our public engagement partners have been doing direct outreach to community partners across the county, and then also on social media and press release. And we've asked other agencies in the county to help amplify our social media as well.
DSS and Department of Aging have been very supportive in helping us with this engagement.
You have a question?
Yeah, this Sherry, did anybody submit something to the News of Orange? Because it's now the News of Orange and Mebane. And that is really a key vehicle for getting people to know about stuff like this in both of those areas. And you have, it's once a week and you have a specific deadline. You know, it would be right at the tail end of your time frame, but it would be definitely helpful for people to know what's going on.
Got it.
We will reach out to them.
And also, I assume Chapel Hill, Chapel Borough and the whatever that,
I told our communication department to use all our resources available.
I'm sorry.
Well, I asked our communication department, the communication department does all the public engagement, using stuff, so we didn't ask them to use all our resources available. But we should follow up and see what other newspapers that we are already in contract with. The county already has contracts with
If
them.
you provide,
for all
a
this
press- I'm sorry, excuse me, if you provide a press release to the News of Orange and it's easy, clean, not horribly long, they will run it verbatim.
Got
And, you know, you can do lots of different things on Chapel Borough's website, both by adding to it and also the radio station.
Okay.
Not to mention the one here.
Yeah, they're full of from staff reports, which means they were from a press release,
Right.
not at all from the
Yeah.
staff report.
You mean the local radio station here in Hillsborough?
WHUP, yeah, Todd gives them $1,000 a year in order to be able to push out our messages on WHUP. I've never been asked to push one out in my years as a DJ there.
I've been on the 8 o'clock news in the morning and I've done the theater. And, you know,
And
I've
we,
been on that radio station one time for transportation, because the 67 years I've been.
Well, you could probably get on there, you contacted Bertman, you could probably get on their regular schedule, 1 day a month for you to come in to talk about it.
and the media kit does have a press release.
B. Bertman at earthlink.net.
And I passed the entire media kit through our communications department saying, use all our resources with its media.
I was just gonna ask about the media kit. Is that in the packet? Is that in the,
It's an attachment two in the packet.
on the report, online?
On the online version, we'll send you a hard copy if you want to use it, if you want to help us spread the word, yes.
Oh, is there any opportunity to coordinate with the land use plan? I know that they're kicking off some stuff in fall, but it seems like with planning efforts, it's always good to have them together. So
That is
folks
what
don't-
we work with planning department to do that. We're also trying to make sure we don't overload the public with public engagement through these next 3 months. The
That's
county
true,
has
but
got to,
trying to touch folks in one place rather than each effort going separate is, useful.
absolutely, yes, we're coordinating with the planning department, yes.
And then for those who are in the room, you'll see on our boards, but the key questions that through the survey and our pop-up events that we're asking of the public is where they would like to see better transit service. So giving them the options of like within Hillsborough, within Mebane, from unincorporated Orange County into these towns, between these areas and then into Durham and Chapel Hill. So we have different variations of checkboxes that they can fill in here. We also asked what times of day are most important for travel, with weekdays and weekend options at different times of day. And we asked what types of transit improvements they would like to see in Orange County. So that's fixed route, on demand, better information, fare payment, bus stops, van pool and carpool, and wait times, and reliability. So those are within the survey and on the boards themselves. And the survey itself is longer than the board. It includes asking how respondents currently use transit, and then some optional demographic questions to track that we're reaching kind of the right people. And then the last bit I have is for the pop-up events. Like I said earlier, we were at the Hillsborough Walmart earlier today. Tomorrow, we're going to the Seymour Senior Center and the Passmore Senior Center. And then on Wednesday, we'll be at Durham Tech, Orange County, and then the UNC Hospital Hillsborough campus. And then our team will also be on Saturday at the Downtown Mebane Extravaganza and Bunny Hop. And then I think Nish, your team is also doing a few more events, right?
And please understand, these consultants put signs at the bus stops themselves and posters at the bus stops to get the public engaged in this process, even in Chapel Hill and other places. So they've done a lot of great work in trying to get as much of the public as involved in this process as possible. We're supporting their efforts, and we're also doing our stuff through our county department public involvement plan to do, doing a presentation at the Cedar Grove Community Center, and Darlene's going to work on one at the Upland Cheeks Community Center to get more engagement and more work to get more public involved in this process as possible. We're trying to go to them rather than waiting for them to come to us.
Very good. Any other questions or comments, Amy?
Just, I don't know whether this, but at UNC, there's a transportation listserv that goes out for people who are transportation riders, and it's always about like what's new on transportation. I think this would be something that definitely needs to go out. If it's not already included.
Any other questions or comments?
Just real
Sure.
quick, this Sherry, how many people so far have you had feedback from?
So our first pop-up was this morning this afternoon at Walmart, and we got good number of people passing by.
It's surprising.
Yeah.
There's not, I mean, you have like for the
For
survey.
the online survey, I would need to check with our public engagement consultant for that. I don't have access to that survey.
Do you want to see if you get 1,000 responses, 100 responses?
Probably more in the scale of around 100 or so.
The furnace the base, and if we get more than better.
Yes.
Better.
And we've worked on the short range transit plans for like Go Triangle and Go Raleigh and kind of Duluth County communities as well. And some rounds we got around 600, others we got like 80. So it really depends on how much people are interested in filling out.
Would outreach also to the, for like, say, the Bailey Tar Heel? I mean, we've got a lot of college students that are in the Triangle, right?
Yes.
See, is that,
And UNC, the Chapel Hill will also be updating their own short range transit plan as well. So there'll be a separate process within the Chapel Hill area and outside Orange County doing their short range. I mean, they also did the Durham and Go Triangle short range transit plan. We also worked as part of core technical team and stakeholders through that process as well. Engaging theirs when Chapel Hill does theirs, we'll be participating in that process as they update theirs. So we're trying to keep all these plans coordinated. Working
Yeah,
together.
it's a bit of a balance too. Where we want to get kind of the whole county, but not overload the results with just a Chapel Hill, like people who only live in Chapel Hill and take Chapel Hill transit too. So it's, because sometimes I think people don't really know the different agencies out there. They see a bus and get on. So we want to make sure a lot of our survey questions we can filter out by that too. Like we ask what services people ride and how often they ride.
And
So going back to our transportation on demand, or maybe we could.
My.
If you're in the town of Chapel Hill, you can't, and you want to go somewhere in the town of Chapel, that's excluded.
you
But
can't.
if you can do that too?
You can keep that too. It's not a restriction.
Yeah, so I think once it gets more popular, there might be a lot of UNC kids who are taking
USC
this.
doesn't want to walk a mile, a quarter mile to the.
Yeah,
A
so
lot of
classes
places
and-
that
Well,
do,
a lot of, you just were talking about college students and stuff, and I'm thinking, they're the ones who use Uber and Lyft to go like,
They do.
it's down the road. And they,
Yeah, those
for
go.
$5, they could do that.
right, so I think once we get into developing strategies, we can also, if you're looking for that, we can recommend some maybe barriers or just different ways to make sure we're really serving the people we're trying to target who kind of don't have other options.
There's a lot of buses down there.
There are a lot of
They
buses,
want
yeah.
to buy.
Yeah, so we don't want this to replace fixed route transit.
For a fare free pass, and whatever, they're asking you to fare free for.
I mean, I'm just thinking, for the parking pass that I paid to go work for the infrequent amount of times I go in, I could just call in for $5, go for it.
You could be our customer. You want to be our customer.
Yeah, you could be our new 16th person.
Other step towards UNC's dream of 8,000 employees who don't drive for their job.
Well, I paid for a parking pass I only have a part-time parking pass, which means 3 days a week, but that's expensive.
That's it.
And I would not spend that much paying $5 each day. Well, I would do $10, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's all we had for today. We're gonna continue to hold events and publicize the survey until the end of the month. We'll take your feedback today and other feedback we've gotten from the core technical team members to analyze the existing conditions report and put it on the website. And then we'll begin developing strategies, which is really the fun part of trying to see how we can improve things.
And we as staff has already published it on our website as well. So if you want to go to our website, it's there.
just occurred to me, sure, last Fridays.
That's been targeted. We discussed it in core technical team. When we discussed those public events.
Last Friday would be really
Okay.
good.
No, I think when we meet as coordinator team every month with the cities in Hillsborough, Chapel Hill, maybe, and also participate in discussing public events in other areas. That's how a list of these pop-up events were established to determine what is the best opportunity. I think our commission also started first Fridays. So what do we do first Fridays or last Fridays? I mean, it's a matter of choosing which is the best opportunity to do that. If we have opportunity, we as staff may be able to do that as well. So it's good.
And then we do have another round of public engagement for this project, probably in August, once we have more recommendations. So this is really helpful for that feedback too, and we can kind of be sure to target future events that way.
Very good. Thanks so much for the
Yeah.
presentation. and for
I
your
did take up all the
work.
time.
We Look forward to hearing your progress. Next item is.
Sorry, not yet. We haven't gone that far with those.
Go ahead. All right.
Item is the US 70 multimodal corridor study.
Are you gonna share?
Let me get on without making any noise.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Y'all may wanna, I don't know if y'all are sticking around,
We can, but
but this got transit improvements on US.
it might be
Yeah.
helpful for us to know.
Here. And I'll send you the recording. With the note.
I hope I'm not echoing or anything like that this time. No echo?
No echo.
Awesome, okay, so I can go here. Go here. Share my screen.
I'm not sharing at all. Yeah, I'm not sharing.
I can see Nisha's screen.
Let me try this again.
It was working for me. I could see your screen.
Josh said it was working well for him.
Okay,
So share again.
is it working okay, Josh?
Yeah, just go ahead.
Y'all have seen the 70 corridor, so I'm gonna try to keep this,
Mm,
huh?
I don't know why it's doing it.
Sorry?
I think it's just because you're in prison for.
Oh, okay. On the right is the big, on the right is the, why that's not showing up well.
Are you in PowerPoint?
There you go.
There you go. Go ahead.
Okay. The US 70 corridor study is made up of multiple partners, 2 MPOs, 3 towns. The state DOT is also involved in this. This is the core technical team of the US 70 corridor study that meets monthly to discuss this project. Yeah, they're aware of this corridor. It's a regional corridor. It is currently a mix of hodgepodge of bike ped gaps and stuff. Freight goes through this corridor. It's rail crossings and intersections and road improvements. So you've seen this from the entire corridor. The span of the corridor is NC 119 west of Mebane, all the way to 751 in East Orange County, includes the business part, the red part of Mebane. I mean, Hillsborough is broken up into 6 different segments, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 different segments, including the business 70, and is studied separately as well as collectively as a whole. VHB is a consultant doing this. Y'all are familiar with it since it's been over a year now, almost 2 years. This study has been going on. A lot of analysis has been done in terms of this corridor for environmental, natural resources, wildlife, bike ped, truck, transit, destination origin, using various different data sources from triangle modeling to street light data to determine destination origin. A lot of this stuff involves traffic volume, level of service, freight, peak and off-peak hours, and off-road crashes. A lot of the majority of the issue that's been identified is increasing in crashes, increasing in safety. This is in speeding. This is post-COVID. As the study's been done in the past year, 2 years. This is post-COVID data and trend that's going on now. And the economic development, the population development that is seen through the modeling has been adopted, increasing in rural population and rural employment, mainly in areas, in the urbanized areas between Hillsborough and Mebane, in some parts between Hillsborough and Durham. As you're aware, 2 rounds of this project has gone through 2 rounds of public engagement. First round is in March to collect feedback, to collect input from the public and presenting some of the analysis. And then back in November, December, when potential ideas, strategies were discussed and alternatives were discussed and presented in the second round. These engagements involve the town meetings in Hillsborough, Mebane, and Orange County, respectively. This is a quick map of showing you all how many people involved, participated through the public process, where they commented from to on the corridor in Hillsborough, Mebane, rural Orange County, identifying that they want to relieve vehicle congestion, not relieve vehicles, but the congestion caused by them. reduce speeding and accidents, non-motorized accidents, maintain the rural character, was addressing the school safety, school circulations, improving intersections and crosswalks, and addressing multimodal throughout the school. The consultant,
I'm sorry, what are the different colors in the dots mean?
it's just where they came from, it's
This is
just
just
because
where-
each of the road is broken into segments, the different segments. So as you can see, the yellow was one segment, that's where the comments came for that segment.
Oh, okay, thank you.
The second segment was a purple, these are the 6 different segments of the portal. Throughout the public process, public engagement, 5 goals were identified throughout this, to determine what the recommendation would be. To improve mobility, as you can see, bike ped, all kinds of mobility, improve placemaking, address safety, job access, and protect the natural environment. And on the right side, you see the various objectives that are necessary to achieve those goals. Manage congestion, prioritize bike ped, improve transit, maintain character, access to jobs on and along the corridor, work towards Vision Zero, reduce pedestrian automobile conflicts and wildlife conflicts as well, and access to parks and other facilities and amenities throughout the corridor. Some of the critical issues, like the environmental issues of animals, access to recreation trails and destinations, the built environment, commercial areas are increasing in the area, maintain the character of cities and towns as they are, improve multimodal growth to jobs and access. Vehicle, and when there was determined that active and vehicle transportation, this is all vehicles. This is not just cars, but freight and transit and other vehicles to make it multimodal, because there's been a lot of gaps in bike ped facilities along the corridor. The infrastructure needs improvement, speeding has been a major issue, and there's a lot of low-income areas along this corridor as well. And addressing some of the issues that are faced by the low-income neighborhoods in this area. Transit has been a major focus along this corridor because all the stops are non-ADA, need to address some of the ADA issues along the corridor for transit. Access is very intermittent. There's a lot, as I mentioned earlier, low-income areas along this corridor. And because as is a major focus, there's fixed route services along this corridor. The fixed route is a shared fixed route. ODX, Triangle goes to this corridor, Orange County goes to this corridor. And so when you get into Alamance County, Blink goes through some of this corridor as well. So there's been a lot of issue in improving transit along this corridor and various gaps.
Is 70 a barrier to pedestrians that's different for 70 as opposed to other roads?
There's a lot of gaps. There's the rural areas is the gap in that pedestrian and access. I mean, Efland area, the area outside of Mebane in Orange County, there's subdivisions that are building sidewalks or sidewalks from nowhere. There's gaps in that pedestrian infrastructure, and how to improve that pedestrian infrastructure as development occurs. And how we might mean by that is either on road or off road pedestrian improvements. So there's a lot of barrier in how to address that gap. We don't call it barriers, the gap that are in there. That's how the city determined it. Safety is a major issue along this corridor, both for all kinds of people, not just vehicle safety, because there's an accident, fatality, a serious injury once a year, and it's increasing. So this pedestrian access, pedestrian safety is a major issue. Wildlife issue is another issue that's causing a lot of these animal crashes. So there's been an issue with safety as a major critical issue that needs to be identified.
This is correct. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, on the safety thing, you saw my comments, I assume. Because there's a recommendation to lower the speed limit in various areas, but I did not see crash data that reflected why those areas were picked. And you just said something about it just says speeding, it doesn't say crash data.
The top is the crash data. The top is the heat map that you see. The heat map is the crashes and the severity of the crashes. The darker red, that's where the fatality of serious injuries are.
That's the crash data at the top.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
and-
top is the heat map that you see at the top. The
Okay.
brighter the red, the severity of the accident, as in fatalities and serious injuries.
Right, but do you have I'm just trying to get an understanding of how often that occurs. It has occurred, but is it X number every week? Is it X number every, how frequent are those?
In the existing condition report, you'll see the crash rating, how the crash rating is increasing over the past post-COVID. The crash rating firmly exceeds that of the pre-COVID. It's more because of the speeding.
What is that? Is there something that you could just tell me what it is, or do I need to go in?
I haven't memorized that number, I'm sorry, I have to get back, I'll look back into,
Because I couldn't find it, okay.
yeah, I'll have to go back and look at it and see, get more detail about that, because it talks about there's more crashes, the frequency of crashes are occurring more now than they were in pre-COVID.
Right, but again, frequency may be increasing, but does that mean it's going from one crash every week to 3 crashes every week? That's all, and you don't have to tell me now, if it's in that report, I couldn't find it, so I was trying to get more specific data than just kind of a generalized ratio.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is correct. The question I had was, do we have any data on the bike lane usage? I'm just wondering if we're seeing an increase on that. Only because I was on a sidewalk the other day, somebody almost rode over me with their bike and there was a bike lane right there.
Near misses are never reported. That's a data issue of everywhere in this country, in the state. Near misses don't get reported. It's the fatalities, there's injuries of pedestrian that get reported. Oh, he bumped me, that.
I'm just trying to figure out if we're actually getting utilization, because just based on anecdotal observation, we're putting a lot of investment in that. Not seeing much usage.
There's because adopted plans like Hillsborough has a connectivity plan that had their data, their process. That bike ped connectivity data of Hillsborough fed this planning process. Mebane, I think last couple weeks ago, just adopted their bike ped plan. Throughout their planning process, their data for their bike ped plan in Mebane fed this plan. So whatever data they use for those plans fed into this one. Orange County has never done a bike ped data analysis of this corridor. We'll be doing one later next year when we get a bike ped plan funded through the UPWP to do that kind of data. So right now we have a gap along this corridor, and this is help addressing where that gap is.
Appreciate that. Thank
This is Randy. How is 70 classified?
Federal highway.
I'm talking about a thoroughfare or
Federal-
my history is before 85, it was the main east-west road in the state. And it still is
It is
pretty
still a-
much east of Raleigh. But on the west side of Raleigh, between Durham and Raleigh, there's some limited access because it's a 4-lane road. And it appears that we're not looking at a 4-lane road here, but
That's coming in a minute.
what's the access? It's almost like it's becoming a city street because we're talking about bike lanes and sidewalks and,
During the analysis, it is, from my understanding now, can get you documentation that get you verification of this. We need verification. It is a federal highway, like the I-40, because it predates I-40. It's a federal interstate. The 40 business that goes through Hillsborough is a federal highway. It is not a local road. It is not a collector road. It is not an arterial road or principal road. It is a interstate highway.
well, tell me what a federal highway means then, because
US 1. US 1, NC 86, NC 54, these are, because they're federal, it's supposed to have limited access. Over the years, it has grown and gotten more and more access. It has developed access because of development, and that development continues to increase along that federal highway, unlike I-40 where it's limited access.
so who officiates in terms of access? If it's a federal road, are there federal officials that say when you can, at a driveway or a business driveway or?
Town,
Across
DOT,
town.
and DOT and the federal agency.
Well,
Because
no, pretty quickly, it sounds like this is almost gonna be a city street. If you had, controlled, pedestrian crossings and you've got bicycle lanes, you're lowering the speed limit. You know, a town speed limit is 35. It doesn't, I don't know what is likely to be recommended here. I'm
I'll get to the
trying to get a
recommendation.
sense of which way we're going with it. Are we trying to become more of a complete streets configuration, or is it still at some level designed to get people from Durham to Mebane?
I'm about to cover that in the recommendations.
Okay.
Before we get to the recommendations, the part of the scope of work for this project is for the consultant to provide policy improvements, policy recommendations before getting into the physical infrastructure stuff. So the policy recommendations are addressing extending the bike ped connectivity along this corridor, and to improve and implement the Outboard Buckle Urban Access Management Plan that is a county adopted locally collected street plan for this area. So these are some of the policy improvements, like addressing the right of way through development. As development occurs along this corridor, to put some of this improvements onto the developer as development continues to increase along this corridor through unified development ordinance, through payment in lieu. We now have a county maintenance agreement with the state with sidewalk that's going there by sheets and stuff. So we will continue using that practice to establish more maintenance agreements with the state for county sidewalk areas. These are some of the policy recommendations that will be coming out of the plan. Now to get into some of the recommendations, speeding. As you mentioned, one of the recommendations coming out of this corridor is to reduce the speeding. Even though you may design a speed limit to be 35, people may still drive faster because that is what is the trend that is going on right now. People are speeding regardless of the speed limit. So the recommendation is to be more enforceable in addressing, like in Mebane, 25, on of Hillsborough, 35, and to recommend 35 in rural parts of the county, even though people may drive 55 on the 35. So the recommendation is to reduce the speeding along that corridor.
So I'm trying to think of a nice way to put it. This is Greg, I'm not for artificially low speed limits. If there's a safety issue, then I think we should adhere to that. But I think some of those ones that are 25, they're just arbitrary 25, and nobody can even drive at 25.
That's why they're specific areas. They're not saying the entire corridor of 25.
But if it's for safety, if it's for true safety, like there's limited distance or the road conditions.
For the heat map, the urbanized areas is where the severities are. The fatalities of citizens are the urbanized areas. Those areas, key segments need to be reduced. As in the town of Mebane, wants it reduced, even though there's maybe 20, 25 or 35, reduce it to 25. That is a town working with DOT to reduce their speed limit. Same thing with Hillsborough, and same thing with Orange County trying to, even though we had no authority over the road, try to get DOT to reduce the speed limit within the rural area. And that includes business 70 as well.
My view on this, if you're gonna widen the road, you're gonna add more lanes under this. You're gonna try to reduce the speed. And it's not gonna be an area like Chapel Hill and Martin Luther King Jr. where you've got development on both sides. It's wooded areas. I just think about trying to drive the speed limit and having 4 or 5 people on my tail and then trying to pass me on a double yellow line.
Yeah, and please, and to go with that, this is a visionary document.
You had a comment, Josh?
Let me address our comment first before.
Okay, the next you talk.
I get your point.
Yeah, I
As
guess
this area continues to grow as a visionary document, this area will continue to develop. As development increases, traffic increases with it. And with that increased future, reduce speed limit, try now, short term, long term, you will eventually need to widen.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I guess to second in that point about speed and multi-lanes, that seems like a tough combination to work. I think it's not really worked on a road like MLK, even with the development on both sides. Folks are still going well over 35. I think that's probably just recommendations that are in conflict. And I also have concerns about the lack of future demand shown in the document. I think the demand shown today in that 10,000, 12,000 AADT range doesn't really justify the widening, but I don't think I saw anything in the 70 study that pointed to future traffic numbers that are going to justify 4 lanes.
Hang on to that, if we, so I know you keep saying this is a local road, so just keep telling me that's what I need to hear, but are people gonna go on 85 instead of 70 if the speed limit is really low, because it takes longer to get from, like, if they're driving from Mebane to Durham, if we lower the speed limit substantially over long portions of 70, are there gonna be fewer cars there, because people don't want to, they want to take 85 because they don't want to drive 35 miles an hour for 6 months?
Very good point.
Maybe the plan.
That's a great, I mean, I live right off of 70, they can go on 85, that's fabulous.
So presumably something happened with 70 north of Hillsborough that was intentional. Just from the reality, it looks like 70A used to be 70.
Yes.
And it was an intentional decision to bypass the heart of Hillsborough. It seems to me like, not having done my homework, I apologize. Mebane is an area that really needs to look at, is there a possibility to reroute the business traffic or the non-business traffic around their community, or else they're gonna be heavily impacted. Or they're gonna have 4 lanes.
And let me get to
Sorry.
I'll get to the one I explained, the widening in a minute, at the end of this recommendation.
Sure, I'm sorry, one other question, and maybe you'll have it in here. The railroads that own a lot of the right of way to the south of 70 from a lot of part of Hillsborough, all along in
Yes.
Mebane. Have they been engaged and or are they part of this vision?
They're part of the NCDOT, they're part of the core technical team in terms of being a stakeholder in the process. Yes, they've been extensively engaged, especially from the very beginning. The IMD office, the road division, because the rail corridor paralleling is a road. Very good points, and we'll be forwarding these comments as part of the public engagement portion to the consultant as we put all our notes together from this meeting. But to continue with the recommendations, part of that recommendation also operational improvements. On the list is some of the intersection improvements. This intersection improvements includes crosswalks and bike ped, ADA access improvements and stuff like that that need to be addressed to achieve the objectives and the goals in the plan. So these are the various locations of intersection and operational improvements for this corridor, as well as multiple pieces of bike ped improvements, both the current bike ped adopted in Hillsborough and Mebane, as well as the supplemental ones that are recommended that go with it, like the corridors that feed into 70, those adjacent corridors and adjacent roads that feed into this area. So these are the various segments of the bike ped improvements along that corridor, and then transit improvements. Before getting into detail about any of the transit improvements, one big policy recommendation that comes out of this is to improve transit-oriented development along the corridor. As in transit-oriented development, as in any stops improvements in density improvements, land use coordination, collaboration to be done as any stops and improvements are hence the transit-oriented development. These are some of the spots identified both along the corridor and those adjacent to it, and feeding, improving transit along the corridor. This is also supplemental bike ped improvements that are adjacent to the corridor that Hillsborough Connectivity Plan and Meban's bike ped plan feeding into this. We're not, this doesn't tell them what to do. Their plans tell the corridor what to do. And these are some of the fixed route service improvements that are recommended in the plan, that adjacent parallel US 70, and whether it's the Hillsborough Circulator, ODX, or other services to provide some of these improvements that are recommended.
How does that play into the short range transit plan and
That's
that?
why the consultant is here. We're feeding this to them.
Yeah, especially
We're
given that
taking
the
some
short range
information
transit
to
plan.
for the recommendations.
especially given that the existing conditions kind of highlight that the Orange Alamance connector may be better served by demand response.
Or or converting that service to something else, remapping that service, because this will feed into that plan. As this is a locally be adopted plan to feed into their recommendations.
So the 70 plan would feed the short range transit plan.
Yes,
Recommendations,
yes,
despite the fact that the transit experts are on the short range transit plan.
yeah, it's something we'll discuss when we get to the recommendations of the short range transit plan as one document feeds the other.
Okay.
A couple more.
Okay.
These are also some of the transit improvements recommended from the study, both along the corridor and other stops that are needed to improve some of the transit services and improving transit access. On the corridor, also taking into consideration some of the improvements that are currently already planned, because they all did the short range, the Durham one that's been taken into consideration. As Durham completed their scope triangle and their ODX improvements, it fed into this planning process. In the end of the end, in order to address both the bike pad, to address freight, to address transit, to address everything else, all the uses, this is the recommended for the widening east of Mebane. As in Mattress Factory Road, which is the west end of that widening, all the way going east. Majority of this is already in the CTP. The US 70 connector going east into 751, that is already in the CTP. This identifies, recommends the area between Mattress Factory Road and the 70 connector also needs to be recommended for widening to address multi-mobility. So the area west of Mattress Factory Road, there is no widening in Mebane.
Hey, without being able to go through this report in detail and seeing it printed out and study it, I'm not prepared to vote on it.
And in terms of funding this plan, these are some of the funding mechanisms necessary to recommend in improving the implementation of that funding process. One thing that's not, as you can see, federal funding is through various raise grants, federal grants, the spot process in the future, implementation of states complete streets, administratively working with DOT to improve spot safety, mobility, and HSIP, and through local land use development, traffic impact analysis, UDOs, and putting some of this development improvements on the developer as the area develops over time. To give you an update, we presented this to Mebane I presented this to Mebane last week. Mebane has already approved segment A and portion of segment B and endorsed the rest. I'll be presenting this to Hillsborough next week for their consideration, their action, and then presenting to Board of County Commissioners for theirs.
What's the timing? This is Randy. What's the timing on presenting it to the county commissioners? Following up on what Art said, do we have time to get a hard copy that we could review in detail and then make a recommendation to the commissioners, or tonight? The calendar stipulates that we have to take action tonight.
If you take action tonight, if you don't take action tonight and I come back to you in April, then the next meeting would be in April, or you're authorizing a special meeting before then.
So when does it go to the commissioners?
I'm hoping to have it to the commissioner because Hillsborough is taking action next week, Tuesday. After I have Hillsborough's action on it and Mebane's action, the next action is Orange County before it goes to the MPO.
Okay, what would be the date that you would take it to the commissioner?
I was hoping to have your action today so I could take it to the commissioner on April the 2nd. If not, then it'll be April 16th. If it is April 16th, then we would need to do a special meeting.
Rather do a special meeting than vote for Teague and Son.
It's just hard to.
I would second that. The motion.
I have a couple of things to add to it. I'm actually a little, you presented this last month.
I presented the whole thing.
Yeah.
Short of the recommendation.
So I guess I'm a little, it's like, we got a presentation last month. We were asked to submit our.
I didn't give you a recommendation. Didn't I also present your recommendation? I presented you all the recommendations. I gave you the whole document. Y'all had a month to review this.
That to me, it's like, I think we should. And I feel bad saying this back to the board, but I mean, I know you weren't here. And so if you weren't here, that's one thing, but I mean, I'm not trying to just pick sides or something, but we were given this presentation last month. We were asked to provide comments. I think we should give hard copies to everybody. So I think that like, needs to go out to everybody. But I also feel like you did your due diligence and like giving us the time that we wanted to provide feedback. So I guess I'm kind of like hitting both sides of this one. I do have some extra comments that I want to make. You provided last time, and maybe it wasn't in this report, but it's in previous reports when we're talking about the traffic flow on 70, and you've presented us where those heavy traffic areas are and where they're kind of different across the span of 70. I didn't see that in this report today, but what I'm not really clear on is the true goal of widening 70, besides those 5 key things we're talking about at the beginning, which are completely contradictory to the plan of 70. So we talk about preserving nature, we talk about rural community, we talk about all those things, and we talk about what we want to do, widen roads, but those are very contradictory to me. So I don't understand what our true goal is. Whether or not it's to get people off of 70 or to make it easier for people to drive on 70. And we have a parallel road, which is 85, which is expected to be widened within the time frame of what we're proposing to widen 70. So either our goal is to get people off of one or off of the other. And if the goal is to get people off of 70, and on to 85, then I don't think we need to widen it if we want to make it into a rural space. We want people to actually, the bike ped stuff. Well, if you widen it, you may be having people who can say, okay, I'm going to use the bike peds. But if you keep it as is and make it a rural area, preserving nature and putting bike paths on there, people are more likely to use that in that means. But if you're widening it, I think, my personal opinion is that you're reducing the likelihood that that's going to happen. And I just don't understand why we're trying to widen both of those parallel roads. It feels like there's nothing, it's not matched up. I'm missing the ultimate goal, is what I'm missing.
When the existing conditions, if you look at the existing conditions report, that's the big, like 100, I think I reviewed it a few months, during the first round of workshops and stuff like that, that was last year. The existing conditions report showed through streetlight analysis, through the modeling data analysis, that 85 wasn't the commuting pattern for the core.
But if it was what, I mean.
Yeah, widening was taken into consideration during that analysis of the projections and the future projections, that the widening would have a regional impact, not for the commuters that are locally doing between Hillsborough, Mebane, and Durham.
Well, so what I'm wondering is like, when you did the analysis of the traffic density, do we have the parallel data to show how densely populated 85 was at that exact same time? Because I don't know how often you're on 85, but many times driving south on 85, it's just congested. So if you are a local person, you're gonna get off and take 70. I mean, I do it all the time because it's convenient. And I'm like, I can just get off right here instead of sitting in this traffic trying to get up this hill. People are going really slow.
Yeah.
I can't.
See, I mean, that's, but if they widen, like, that's not, do we have the data that says 85 traffic at the same time that 70 traffic is congested?
That's the triangle regional model data. That's the modeling, the TRM, the triangle regional modeling data that shows that it's been through the CTP and the MTP for the Durham side, as well as a Piedmont model. Even though Piedmont doesn't get to this area much, but the triangle regional model that showed, okay, 85 widening. Well, it's still requiring the 70 widening because the 70 widening from that modeling is been in the CTP that shows that even if 85 widening, people are still going to continue using 70. And the development on 70, the future economic development that's on 70, that whether it's Hillsborough's development or the effluent buffer Mebane, between Hillsborough and Mebane, that development, the development is nothing to do with regional growth. It's got nothing to do with people on 85. It's got to do with the growth and development on 70 itself that's gonna cause increased traffic on 70. It's not as the Effingham Industrial Park where Bucky's or any other development, Lebanon Road, the residential development that's going on. Future development, because as you can see in this, if you look at this past month that y'all have reviewed this document, there is no when the widening is occurring, whether it's 2050, 2060, or anything like that, or 2055, 45, or anything like that. As the report has been done. As development continues to increase on 70, whether in Effingham growing, becoming a big city of its own, as Effingham grows, as future investments in the industrial area between Hillsborough and Durham grows or anything like that. As development grows, we want this plan to impose on the developer. If you're going to develop on this area, please address these improvements that are needed by your development. It's not just that it'll be a future state project or STIP project, because a lot of the developers are going to be causing the growth of the traffic.
Just to follow up on that. The Orange County Commission doesn't have to have this report in order to require developers.
It has to have a basis. Without this report, there is no basis to impose it on the developer.
Even though this is quote a visionary report.
It's a locally adopted plan. It becomes a locally adopted plan. Because it is a locally adopted plan, that local adoption gives us the authority in land use planning. If without an adoption, there is no authority.
So I recently was going on 70 east of Raleigh. towards,
Mhm.
You know.
Garner,
Well, over
Smith-
there.
Smithfield?
Over towards, over there.
Okay,
And-
Johnson County area.
Yes, and John, and. it's
Okay.
In this, now it's this, I mean, 70 is this big, it's almost like a freeway. It is a freeway.
It
It's going to
is.
be a freeway.
It is.
My question is, do we want this 70 to be a freeway? And if this plan would actually enable that, I would vote against it. I'm sorry. I just don't see it in the same vein. And you all have done terrific work. It's not the work, it's just that I'm not sure that I, as you said, Amy, get the vision because, you know.
I think that's what's missing, is like the goal of what we're trying to achieve is missing, I think. But to me, that's what I really want to understand, because to your point, like, I would not approve us expanding for the sake of higher, more traffic going through there. But that doesn't seem to be, if we go back to the beginning of what we were trying to achieve, that's not what we're trying to achieve. So I am missing the connection between those initial goals. So those 5 little, yes, those goals and objectives. So
You're gonna share it,
Yeah.
Nish?
No, let me give you a second to get to
Okay.
it.
Well, they could possibly also be that there are parts that maybe what I would feel comfortable with, or there are some parts of this I think are good and maybe are needed for Orange County to be able to constrain developers or require developers to do things. But there are parts of it that I don't feel comfortable with.
But without, please understand, without approval, without it being a locally adopted plan, there is no imposing on developer, asking a developer or requesting a developer.
But can we take parts of this plan, proposed plan out that we don't agree with? Or is it all or nothing?
That's a good question.
We recommend it with concerns about point A. Would that be able to be communicated?
Yes, that is communicated, but please understand, and by all means, this is y'all are the advisory board of the Board of County Commissioners. Y'all make the recommendation, how y'all see the motion and the action and whatever, that y'all are the advising board. I mean, staff will make its recommendation, the TAS will make its recommendation. We will have Hillsborough's and Mevin's recommendation and its actions, and you would have yours whenever the full package is presented to the Board of County Commissioners. If you are piecemealing, taking pieces of it, a bike ped component without a highway component, you're telling the commissioners, pay for it. Because if you're saying the bike ped is good, highway is not, you're recommending the complete street no longer applies, and you're telling the commissioners, we want the bike ped, state says, county pay for it. It's no longer an imposition on the developer.
So just to fill up to Amy's point about the purpose, and you brought up 70, this is Greg, What's interesting is my daughter and her family live out in New Bern. And the 70 improvements, I will tell you, because you can go 70 miles an hour and it is restricted, that's really good. So the question is, what's the problem we're trying to solve? Because we kind of talk out of both sides. 1 minute's about smoothing traffic, which would mean restricted access a little faster. And the next piece is we've got, nature walks and bike paths. So it's like, are we trying to, I guess the more I'm thinking about it, as we started discussing it, I'm not sure what problem we're trying to solve.
That's why when we told the consultant, we want short-term, what are the short-term improvements that are needed? What are the mid-term ones and what are the long-term ones? What is the future process going through the future? I mean, reduce speed limits is one thing, but as development, more and more development increases, more traffic and more impact, so speed no longer controlled, it's something else that needs to be done. So you're going from a short-term improvement to a mid-term improvement to a long-term improvement.
I think we need a special meeting to go and, or we'd be here to 10 o'clock tonight talking about this without having read the material enough to talk intelligently.
Yes, that's why it's been going on for a month. That's why I was looking through the previous presentation. When I gave the previous presentation, it was the same recommendation.
Yeah, I'll say, I think looking at the goals.
Go
and
ahead, let Josh, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah. Sorry. Looking at the goals and objectives that we've got up front, I think it serves mobility, but I don't think it really serves placemaking or safety or natural environment to widen 70. I think especially in this part of Orange County and Alamance County, 70 doesn't need to be the controlled access highway. That's 85's job, and 85 is right there. I think the goal should be to make the urban parts of 70 in Hillsborough and Mebane feel safer, to kind of add some of that to Efland as well. But I think the focus on the mobility and adding lanes, to me, is going to lead me to recommend not approving the study.
Just gonna comment on the natural environment part, this is Sherry, because I did comment on this.
Yeah, it does kind of, we.
Go ahead.
So,
Finish.
yes.
Yeah, we have I went down that road today. I go down that road many times, a week, and both ways, east and west. And, I've been consciously looking at the rights of way and the trees along that road. And in some areas, it's heavily treed, and I'm very leery, this federal highway, federal dollars, federal contractors who do the work on this, and they're terrible about stormwater control, replacement of trees. They did at that bridge at Riverside Drive. I mean, they did not replace any of those trees or any of the stuff they were supposed to do. So I was a little concerned about if we did go with the widening issue, one of the effects would be to reduce the tree cover.
Yeah, Hillsborough, for the organized areas, for that, to address some of that comment, the Hillsborough's portion of that has been extensively involved in that Hillsborough has their plan for 70. Hillsborough has, and so does Mebane, have their plan, and their actions are feeding this that you're seeing. And as Hillsborough, I'll be presenting to Hillsborough on the next Tuesday to get their final feedback and their final action on this. So if y'all want to do another special meeting, it would have to be after the 25th, when this is before Hillsborough.
I don't see a path forward without going with a special meeting. Push it, Nigel get defeated.
Yeah. So between the 25th and the 2nd, we'll schedule another meeting to go over this
25th of,
March and the
It's
2nd.
a spring break, like, come on, that's like. I mean, I get we want a special meeting, but I read this thing a month ago when we got it,
That's
so.
No,
I've
I'm
extended
like, I'm gonna be on vacation when you have your special meeting.
I
Sure.
read it as well.
Yeah.
I'm ready to vote. I'm gonna vote against it. I mean, it just depends on
Yeah.
what we want to do.
So question this is Greg, question from a procedural standpoint. If we vote against it, you could still present that as being staff recommended, and then we could say, hey, we recommend, like, we like the mobility and the safety piece. Is that?
Whatever motion that y'all make and the action that y'all take, that is the motion that's presented to the county commissioners, along with the Hillsboroughs and Mebans.
I mean, I think we have a lot of data. My personal opinion, I would feel comfortable if somebody wants to make a recommendation, like if we like pieces of it. I don't know.
I
It's gonna pass, we need to have a special meeting.
I don't think the whole thing is gonna pass, like.
Even if it doesn't, there's been disagree, there are multiple items that have been going to the county commission with the advisory board saying one thing and others action being taken, so that's not
So-
unheard.
If I was to make a motion, it would be that I will make a motion that we carry this forward with the objection of the fact that the goals and objectives do not align with the intent of the actual plan that has been laid out. And we would want them to go back and do another assessment to actually give us a clear plan that actually, like, show me in your plan each of those different goals and objectives. There's 5 goals and objectives. I want to see them. Literally, you tell me which each of those things are mapped out onto the actual plan, because I don't see a connection there. So that's my motion. But that's what I'm recommending, is we ask them to go back and map out the goals and objectives to the actual plan. If that makes sense.
Can I ask a
Shouldn't
question?
that imply not approving it at this time?
Yes.
Okay.
That's basically not approving it, yes.
So let me go through one thing real quick.
So I'm asking them to do
I'll
something.
second it for.
Okay,
for
Sherry
discussion-
seconded.
For discussion.
Motion and second, so the motion survives. So need a vote on that motion.
After we finish discussion of it. Now we're open to discussion.
I thought you were gonna.
The Robert's rule is first, motion second, then discussion. That's the Robert's rule. Yes.
Is it fair to say, this is Randy, is it fair to say that there seem to be items in this plan that are at cross purposes to each other? That's my impression. Is there, if you read through it, they say one thing about increasing mobility and then another one about slowing things down. Slowing traffic down and letting people, set up a lot of crosswalks and,
Yeah.
bike lanes. And if you do 4 lanes, that's working at cross purposes, to the whole rest of the plan. So I don't know if that is a different way of looking at it, but that's my thinking at the time, is that someone needs to look at the plan and figure out how to, adjudicate between items in here that are working at cross purposes to each other.
As you look into the plan, starting in section 5.111, it talks about how the goals and the recommendations are connected.
Can you make that so it's enhance that?
Let me see, what did I do last time?
30.
Let's see, what did I do last time?
You've got one page there, if you can bring that back up.
That's what I'm trying. Here's the document.
The point that I'm trying to make is that, and then it just basic, going back to what Randy's saying, is they're contradicting what they're actually doing in the plan. So
Click on the corner right here, Nish. What's this? No, up here at the top.
So
What's that?
when you look
Right
at-
here, what's that?
If you go to page 132,
They don't make it big.
the 132, there's a table. And it's the US Corridor 70 Plan goals. And it maps out each of those goals, and it tells you within each of the goals what they're actually planning to do.
Yeah.
This is where I'm saying it's contradictory. It's,
Okay,
so that's my point, right? Is that what they're actually stating the goal is. If you look at the plan, those things do not. Maybe I need data, like you could say, this plan, how we got from goal to plan, here's the data that proves that that would actually help you achieve that goal. But it feels like they have a plan, and then they decided that they would go back and say, these are like the nice phrases that we want people to concentrate on, because people won't look at like 500 pages. So mobility plan, that sounds great. Keeping my nature, great. Look at bike path. I love it all. Give me those 5 goals. I approve everything. But the reality is the plan does not match those goals. So that is my biggest problem, is that when I say map, like they have it here. So I guess what I don't want them to say is, well, we already did that. what I'm saying is there's a contradiction between the plan that they've got laid out and the goal. And to me, it just feels like they went ahead and put a theme or a label around something that sounds really nice and makes people go, that's what I would want for the future of my town. Because all those things sound really, really nice. But they are not consistent with what they're proposing in that plan at all. So I would want them to say, you tell me how A 15-1 widen US 70 to a 4-lane divided facility from McBain Store Road to Buckhorn Road. That's mobility, okay, except manage increasing vehicular traffic congestion, including auto, EMS, and freight. And then you have things where we're talking about the fact that we're gonna reduce the speed on there. Well, that does not mean the same thing. Unless it's your thing of, which I can appreciate to an extent, where it's like, well, if we lower it to 35, they'll drive the actual speed limit that it is now. And which, I mean, that's nice. And it probably is true that there's plenty of people who will go, okay, I will only drive 20 miles over the speed limit. You know? But there's just, it just doesn't, this does not match to me.
I think to
So-
build on to what you're saying, Amy, it sounds nice, but there's no data. So if we're saying we're gonna speed up the traffic, and what's the estimate? Like, are we gonna actually reduce commute times by lowering the speed limit? So I guess that's the point, is I don't see any data that says it's a lot of words that say we hit it, but so what are we actually getting? 20% reduction in commute time? Or
So so would that be something that you would need presented at like the special meeting, the impact of these improvements that show how?
I think that we part of the
That's why
study,
it's meeting
right,
goals.
to show the how, because right now it's a lot of words, but it's like not showing. If we make that investment, how would you go back to somebody and say, hey, we never met these goals, but we didn't really tell you what that was. It's kind of very fuzzy.
I mean, things like we've got, all right, if we already have accidents, we have mortalities in these accidents, and we have a 2-lane road. Well, what is the comparable mortality on a 4-lane road? And are we actually going to be increasing our mortality because the mortality is higher on 4-lane divided highways than it is on a 2-lane? I'm sure.
The ASTM has already answered that. The ASTM has already answered how 4-lane divided has a reduced crash rating than 2-lane undivided.
It
The
does.
ASTM already has, and this was presented in the U-54 corridor study. The 54 corridor study, the same, the study showed data-wise how 4-lane divided, the crash rating is less than 2-lane undivided.
But is it limited access or is it limited access or unlimited access? That's
Unlimited access is on rural roads in
Okay.
North Carolina, how 4-lane undivided is safer than 2-lane undivided.
Right.
And that is something that's been backed up by the ITRI traffic safety study as well, saying the same thing, that 2-lane undivided is the most dangerous road in North Carolina.
But what about the speeds?
It doesn't matter, the configuration of a 2-lane undivided, because in rural parts of North Carolina, the speed it hasn't been a factor of rear end or head on or any collision, because of the frequency of the crashes of 2-lane is more than 4-lane undivided.
Well, where the pedestrian incidents.
Well,
figured
the
with
only
that.
ones is that those that are reported of fatalities and near misses are not reported, so there's no real concrete answer of how many pedestrian. All I know is that in rural area, the gap is causing more.
Well, what I see on TV is that the 4-lane roads
Rural county.
are much more identified with pedestrian accidents and fatalities.
I'm sorry?
What I see on TV, and it's just, my own hunch, is that Capitol Boulevard and Falls of Noose Road, those 4-lane roads are where people try to cross both lanes and get smacked by somebody coming that didn't see them. So it may be true that there are fewer crashes, but I'm just wondering about whether the pedestrian accidents may be higher. And I don't know that data is even available. It's just an instinct thought off the top of my head that
Falls of the news is
You
in
trade-
the nation. There
you trade off,
are too many lanes for the
you
weekend.
trade off
So is Cap,
whose safety you really want to invest in.
please.
I did.
Mhm.
Could you repeat the motion, please?
Oh, be able to repeat with us.
Yeah,
Can you read it? Can you read it back to us, please?
So y'all been talking. I have to try to go back. It was you and it,
Why don't you, I mean, I'm sure it's just back up a
yeah,
little bit.
keep back up.
Go back.
Question or motion?
It was a motion.
Motion
You
and
called a
second.
question.
The question is for the vote or you asking for, I'm trying.
Calling a question means asking for the vote.
Oh,
You
okay,
have to
okay.
vote on
Asking for the
it.
vote.
You know that.
Okay,
Even though I'm not sure the best path forward.
we have a motion, second and a vote.
Yeah, now we have to have a vote on the motion once the motion gets read back to us.
well, that's if I can find it, cause y'all still talking. So every time you talk, it comes up. Okay. It says, can I ask a question? I can't, let's see, not approving it this time. Yes, okay. So that's basically not approving it.
It's right before that.
Is it right before that?
Yeah, that should be.
It was that long speech.
Is it? If I make a motion, would it be that I would make a motion that we carry this forward with the objection of the fact that the goals and objectives do not align? I'm trying to find it. Is that it? Okay. And objectives do not align with the intent of the actual plan that has been laid out. And you would want then to go back and do another assessment to actually give us clear answer. It just says clear. Plan that meet the actual like show. It's not gonna tell exactly. You see what I mean? So,
You,
cause
so you clarify the motion.
okay.
Wait a minute.
I'll make a motion that we ask the consultant to go back and map the goal to the plan so that there's a clear indication of how they plan to achieve the proposed plan with the 5 aligned goals. I don't want to say that much clearer. And that's okay. Addressing the fact that we can see within their plan how they indicated each of those goals will be achieved. But we would like some data to back up how they would actually achieve that plan.
Alignment.
Hmm?
Alignment.
Alignment.
So what they've done is they've listed every
Okay.
tiny thing that they plan to do and which goal it goes with, but some of those things don't mesh well together, and we would like to see
Yes.
that each goal has a list of things that kind of go together to achieve the goal, not just that they managed to name everything to make it neat and tidy.
Yes, I mean, I like the graphic. I think they did a nice job with the 5. Can I make a better motion? No, I was gonna make a friendly amendment, which is, the amendment might be, do you want to say we are tabling our approval of this until we get this back, or we are disproving it until we get this back?
Just table
What are we,
it.
what?
Just table it. Just table it because he's asking for them to come back with it.
Okay, so then the friendly amendment would be at the beginning of that. Your thing, you would say that we are tabling
I took a picture.
action on the US 70 multimodal corridor study until, and all the stuff you said. Okay.
But just to clarify, I will read what I feel, what I understood of the motion, and you can second if it's correct and provide any clarity. The motion is tabling the item till the consultant can come back and demonstrate data-wise how the recommendations help meet the goals of the plan.
I'm good with that.
You good with that, Chair?
If you have a better way of phrasing it, by all means, I'm trying to keep it clear and concise.
The stated goals were.
So I'm comfortable with the stated goal. I like the goals.
Okay, then I'll read, so then fine, I'll just second.
If I was to just read those goals and I could trust the fact that we were gonna do that, I'd be like, sold, like, that's what I want all those things. I think that's a objective that I would like for us to be able to meet. But when I read the plan, I go, that doesn't make sense. Why would we do that to meet that goal?
She wants the data with the recommendations to show how the
want-
data with those recommendations are meeting the goal.
And what I wanted, like, I want them to know, like, I can clearly see how they map the thing. I just don't quite agree the fact that those plans are those goals. Like, if you didn't have those 5 goals and you just said, here's the plan, I'd be like, that's not a good plan for our county.
Yeah. So
And-
motion,
Go ahead, Josh,
guess-
real quick.
Yeah, and I guess due to that, do we want to table this or do we want to vote to not recommend, to recommend denial? I can
We said
personally say-
table it. They're
Okay,
tabling it.
Okay, I can personally say I'm happy to table it, but I'll probably vote to recommend denial because the same study is going to come back to us. They're not going to fully revise the study in a month.
Like what Amy said earlier, that resonates the most with me, which is are we trying to draw more traffic to go faster here? Or are we trying to draw less traffic to go slower because it looks like we're doing both?
Yeah.
And we're not sure which one we're trying to do. And I would rather communicate something specific and clear, like about a specific problem that we have, like, because I mean, I think that's my big problem with it is, like, are we gonna build a 4-lane road and drive the traffic away? Or are we going to, I don't know, because they're doing other things, like the thing that we haven't, the 85 connector, they're getting access that, they've said they want access to that from the west. Right now, you can only access it from the east. And that would drive more traffic onto 85 that would have had to continue onto 70. And those kinds of things are all trying to drive traffic off the road and then make the road bigger. And it just seems unsupported.
Okay, so I think we can give a vote on the motion and then.
So you can make another.
No, you can, if we can
Yeah.
vote on this motion and if it doesn't survive, then you can leave it.
Withdraw the motion.
I could withdraw, I withdraw the motion.
As a second, I'll go around.
I don't remember what I said. I was going to make a motion
About the 2 purpose.
that it's unclear from the project whether they're trying to draw more traffic, have more traffic on a bigger road, or do things to deter traffic from being on 70 and go off onto other roads.
okay.
And
You're-
therefore,
And therefore,
we oppose it.
yeah, I've opposed it since the first time I saw it.
Okay, so is that part of it? And therefore we oppose it as written?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I already count 5 no's in the plan, regardless of what they come back with.
No, are you saying, but with that motion, does that motion then include that
You're not tabling, you're rejecting the plan.
Right, if we're speaking of the plan as a whole, I like parts of the plan and I dislike other parts of the plan, but since we are asked to provide an approval or not approval of the whole
You
plan.
can table, like I said, this is an advisory board. You are welcome to table and have another meeting and discuss this again.
I think to your point, are we gonna see any different results, right? So I don't wanna spend a lot of time.
What if
At the
we-
end,
what
when
if
the
we try
consultants
to
come back and say,
coordinate-
We made the recommendations. It's like, I don't wanna waste time. It's like, I think.
How many undecided people? do
So
we
I
have?
have a question. What if we try to coordinate for them to come in person? Can we try to do that? Yeah, so if we can get the special consultant, y'all get in, But we try to do it outside,
Not here.
but can we try to do it outside of spring break? Is that possible? Cause I ain't gonna lie, if I wouldn't be here either. I'm just gonna be honest. I don't blame you.
So my
But-
question to you is, when do y'all want to have the special meeting? Be between the 20, it would,
And my battery is about to die, cause we've been on here like 2 hours.
That motion got withdrawn. So now-
Okay, cause
Yeah.
are you tabling or are you making an action on the plan? That's my question.
If
Going
we-
back to that, we have the table.
I wonder if that's my battery about to die. I don't even know. I don't have that type.
It's the same thing.
We don't actually have a motion.
But I think that needs to
Okay.
be the motion. Would you like to draw that up for?
Table or action? What do y'all?
What are we doing? Table or action?
I guess I would say that, well, here's a motion, which would be, I guess we disapprove the US 70 multimodal corridor study as
Presented.
presented. Because
It's hard to tell what the goals are because there's things in it that contradict themselves.
the goals are contradictory and the plan does not align with the goals.
I'm happy to second that.
We heard you, Josh.
Sherry, I can read you, I can understand the motion. Sherry's made the motion, Josh has seconded the motion of denying the plan based on the contradictory nature of the goals and the recommendations.
Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed,
Aye.
the motion nay. Abstentions. Motion carries.
All right.
I didn't write the plan, I just presented the information that's in it.
You did a nice.
And I understand why y'all say what y'all say about 70, because I stay on that side of 70 that you're talking about. Smithfield, well, I'm saying Smithfield, but, so I know Johnson County, and I graduated from New Bern High, so I
Yeah.
understand that too. So then when you went Orange County, it's like, so, that's all I gotta say, no comment.
Like the Johnson County Commissioner who dealt with that without any fisticuffs.
What happens now?
I still present to Hillsborough on the 25th. I will let the consultant know what the action is for the outboard. Yeah, I will express the concerns of the outboard to Hillsborough but my feed from what I've been told is it's favored in Hillsborough because their plan fed this one. Their recommendation is being carried forward in their planning of widening 70. The town is widening 70 for their portion has the outlook for it.
I think your comments about there's going to be development and growth on 70, this body can't control that. We can't have all of those 5 goals met on every meter of 70, and some places are going to be compromises.
And 70 business is not being widened. 70 business is clearly outlined in the plan as is. So
I hate to say it because it's not constructive, but I just feel this is a Bucky's conversation. Right? We can make a recommendation. We don't have any authority.
you're the advisory board, just as I'll be providing the recommendation that here what the town of Mebane did, the town of Hillsborough did, and the minutes of this meeting when they asked for the minutes of this meeting.
I can sleep at night with my decision.
If
If you don't make a difference, I know that I.
You did your part,
you did your part.
and your conscience is good.
The resting in your agenda, resting in your packet is the FY 25 annual award program. If you all have any comments on that, it is going to the Board of County Commissioners for approval in April. Staff work group should be recommending action on it in a couple weeks or next week. The annual award program for the county transit tax is also in public, going for approval. That's the last thing in your packet, and you have the NCDOT report.
Can we get a list of this is Randy, can we get a list of the, pavement rehabilitation projects for
Yeah.
Orange County?
Yeah, that's a public document. I'll get that public document to y'all. It's the Highway Maintenance Improvement Program. It's the 4-year state plan to resurfacing. I'll get that to y'all. That's updated every year.
Figure out what the plan is for.
Yeah.
The third item down on the NCDO Division 7 project. 54 from Westbrook Drive in Carver to west of 15501. Interchange at Chapel Hill, construct sidewalk, install pedestrian signals, crosswalks, and refuge island. Is this gonna be on the 54
That's the bypass.
bypass?
That's the bypass.
Well, it's the same issues we've just been talking about. We're gonna put a bunch of crosswalks, pedestrian signals. It's gonna become Martin Luther King Jr. roads.
It's a Carborough and DOT.
Yeah. And that project there is due to the apartment complexes that are built with no other access off 54. When the bus comes by, folks are already running across 54 in substantial numbers. So it's to address that existing issue.
Intercom.
The item is installation of thermoplastic pavement markings on various secondary roads. Is there a list of those?
I will ask Chuck Edwards, see if he can give me a list, because that's an administrative action by DOT.
Yeah.
Adjourn. Says we move to adjourn.
Y'all on April 15th, get your taxes filed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Josh.
All right, Josh.
That's what you had. I do want to read.